idle, I would say, except for commodity production until we got here 7 years ago. Um, there's been corn and beans and wheat on the other side. Most of it Roundup Ready, which means genetically modified for the last 20 years, 30 years, something like that. But it had, at some point, sheep and cattle and grew grass seed and I forget what other things. But it's been a farm that was a plantation sort of farm with slaves, and there's slave quarters on the other side that are still there. So it has long history, and the folks who sort of quote unquote own it now and trust are sort of looking to see if they can do something good with the farm, sort of fully conscious of what the farm has done in its past. So, grasshoppers, if folks have questions about grasshoppers, I'm happy to answer them. So Grasshoppers is a local food distribution company that I own with 3 other farmers. We set it up with help from the State Ag Development Board, which is was created in the year 2000 when the state of Kentucky settled with tobacco companies, along with lots of other companies, lots of other states, attorneys general, that is. And Kentucky decided to allot its share of the tobacco settlement to transition farmers out of tobacco and tobacco-dependent communities out of tobacco. And so there's $1.7 billion over 25 years to make that happen. Grasshoppers got some of that money to open. Its point really is to help aggregate food from small farms and make it available to a wider, more mainstream audience in Louisville in particular. We as small farmers like to think that it helps us who are sort of up to here in direct marketing and not at the farm enough have a greater opportunity to be on the farm producing. It's not just that though. We're hoping that more traditional farmers who really don't direct market have an opportunity to sell some things that they might not have otherwise had the chance to sell if they grow 2 or 3 crops or something like that and do them well. Can't really show up at a farmer's market with them because the farmer's market is more about developing relationships than it is about selling single or 2 or 3 crops or something. So, I just want to share a short story with you that Carol helped make happen. It's exciting and sort of struck me after the fact. And it sort of is a story about how far we've come and sort of how far we still have to go. Carol had some folks from Kentucky Refugee Ministries come out. There were folks from all over the world, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Latin America. And there's obviously a big language gap. And toward the end of the day, Carol was hugged like 7 or 8 times. And I was sort of passively watching this while doing my work of the day. And Carol related the story that one of these folks came up, I think the guy was from Cuba, and just said, "I'm so happy." After the end of the day, it was the English that he knew and could articulate. It was powerful, and I was just sort of trying to reconstruct what was going on for people who had come from more indigenous agricultural communities and efforts, places that we've really gotten far from. Even us at the farm, even we go and shop at Whole Foods occasionally and other sort of locally owned groceries, and the idea of where your food comes from is still somewhat abstract for us, even us. But to imagine this sort of visceral reaction of where your food comes from and understanding it as a sort of food security question that people might have as they are thinking of their community in a sort of small and somewhat closed sense, as if they had arrived there and were wondering, so where's the food coming from? Imagining those stores and coming here and finding that this is one of those places. And in that way sort of reconnecting them with not just the food that they might be eating, but the community that may have come from. So a lot of what we do today is sort of try to get back to that in some way. We have a lot of different, apparatus to get there. We have community-supported agriculture. We have farmers markets, and grasshoppers is another sort of entity to help people know their farmers a little bit better, get some more local food. But it's not, in my mind, it's not that visceral relationship, but it's trying to get there nevertheless. And people, because they may have participated in any number of some of these sort of part-way measures in trying to get to sort of become closer to their food. This is a way to get still more close, if people imagine it, sort of without the global food system being present. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to replace it in some way, or be ready to replace it when it can no longer sustain itself. So it was a powerful story, and it was really neat to think about and see and realize after the fact really what was going on, because of the intensity of the emotion that was there. So.
Wow. Any questions for Ivor or Carol that came up?